We're about to start our second keynote session. We have a question for you. Are there any winners and losers as the future accelerates? Will the pace of change slow down or speed up further? And will the future be more of the same or increasingly alien? Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor today of welcoming David Oot. He's a pioneer of the smartphone industry. He's the chair of London Futurists. A big applause for David Oot. Welcome, David.
Thank
Such a pleasure to have you
Romina.
here.
It's great to be here.
The stage is yours.
I don't like to talk about losers. The world I envision is a world in which we are all winners. And that's possible with a world of abundance. But if we are distracted or confused, if we are unwise, there will be lots of people left behind as the future accelerates in ways we have not anticipated. We might all, including the great and good here, stumble badly unless we are able to apply what I call the 7 most important characteristics, which are different from the things that have made people successful in the past, because the near future is going to be quite different from that. I'm drawing my ideas from 15 years chairing the world's largest meetup focused on foresight, and from 25 years at the heart of a turbulent industry of mobile computing and smartphones. First, a word about how change happens. Change often happens pretty slowly and disappointingly. And then, whoosh. It doesn't actually happen like that if you're paying attention, but if you're not paying attention, there is suddenly this really fast breakthrough. And that's what I'm predicting for the next few years. In 3 stages. First, there will be more breakthroughs in AI that put the last couple of years of breakthroughs in the shade. Not just large language models that Ben was talking about a moment ago, but combination models, emergent models, which will do the things he said AIs could not do. These breakthroughs in AI will lead to breakthroughs in other technology areas, such as nanotech, biotech, and cognotech. There will be changes in manufacturing and energy, changes in healthcare and agriculture, changes in entertainment and education over perhaps 3 to 10 years that make what's happened in the past look small. And all of that's going to change every aspect of our lives, including many business impacts. And even before the business impacts are here, people are gradually going to waken up and say, wow, there's an incredible tornado coming our way. And there's going to be lots of discussion, lots of disgust, lots of dissent over the next 2 to 3 years. I'm here to say, let's get ahead of these discussions. Let's be wise ahead of time. So what is a disruption? Is this a disruption? No. This is what you're all good at doing, incremental progress, more of what you already do. This is a disruption. It's a change of game. It's doing things differently before, and at first the performance is poor, so who's going to look at it? That blue line is an existing way of doing things, like the old mobile phones that were very reliable but didn't have smart features. Or maybe that's an existing platform such as how we used to buy music in physical stores and listen to it on physical hardware. And this pink line is the new platform capability. New types of smartphones, new types of ways of purchasing and listening to music, new types of AI. And people like me, we often get excited about platforms before they arrive. There's a lot of hype and excitement, but the reality is often people are disappointed. That's the slow part, because they're not very easy to use. You need to be on your phone to the head of IS to help you configure it. But the technology enthusiasts say, hang on in there, it's coming soon. Just be patient. And there still may be waves and waves of drawbacks, because although it may now be usable, it's still not very useful. there are no actual benefits for ordinary people, services or applications. And that's what happens a lot of the time until sometimes, whoosh, there is this rapid change. And people who are still on the old system, wedded to the old processes, the old tools, get left behind. That's how the great and the good stumble. So, I say again, these disruptions, if you're not paying attention, they seem not to be happening at all until they happen and it's too late. That's the theory. But if you're here, if you're weighing up the possibilities of a disruption, you may well think, I don't believe in this. This is going to fizzle out and die as a damp squib. Think blockchain, for example. All that hype and it's done, nothing useful. How do you determine whether a possible disruption is going to be like that or like this, changing the game? How do you distinguish them? If anybody tells you there's a simple way to distinguish them, don't believe them. Don't buy their books. Don't give them an expensive consulting contract. There is no simple answer here. But there are some general principles, and I will give you some advice on how you can prepare for the possibility of change. That's what we sometimes call a level 2 futurist. And sometimes, rather than being ready to adapt when the change happens, you might take charge of that change. You might be the people to supply the decisive services and applications to change this technology from being cool to being incredibly indispensable. And that's a level 3 futurist. There are 4 levels of futurist altogether, and as a computer scientist, I start with level 0. Level 0 is the nowist. He says, I don't think it's worth thinking about the future. I've got too much to concentrate on now. And by the way, it's impossible to know anyway what's coming next. They're just going to take their chances. If a disruption comes, they hope their heads won't be chopped off. Bad idea. Though I understand why people reach these views, because they listen to glib futurists rather than people who really understand what's going on. Level 1 is people who see change coming. They react to it. They want often to squash it, to stamp it out. And sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes you can do that. But there are some changes that have so much potential that what you need to do is, as I said, prepare. Be ready to catch up quickly once the situation changes. And sometimes you can be this builder of the new future. Let's look more closely. Successful corporations who want to last more than a few years need to split their attention, their management focus over 3 horizons in parallel. You must keep all the balls in the air, fulfilling your existing commitments, be operationally excellent with project management, HR management, financial management. Don't drop the balls. And these guys all have their heads looking up. You need some people looking forwards, and most good companies do have some people looking forwards at doing more of the same on that incremental curve I showed you before. But he's got a pretty narrow focus. And a lot of the time, he will not see the elephant coming, the disruption, because that elephant, if you're not looking for it, it blends into the background. It seems unimportant, but it might charge at you and kill you. Or if you see it and learn how to train it, it can take you to new heights. Just to look at these 2 last columns again in more detail, the stuff on the left, the incremental future, he wants to minimize surprises. He wants to see things coming clearly in good time. He wants to prioritize control and efficiency. He might have done a 6 Sigma course to minimize variations. And that makes sense when things are clear. But the world coming has got so many surprises. You can't rule them all out. Therefore, you need a new skill set, which is to be able to take advantage of surprises. Therefore, you need new skills. Prioritize openness, emotional resilience, the ability to explore in an agile way through uncertainty. On the left, you're trying to run like a smooth machine. On the right, there's no way this is going to be smooth. You need people who are emotionally resilient. The left has a narrow focus, the right has the big picture. And seeing the big picture is very hard, but I'm going to try and share that with you in the time that's left. An outrageous big picture vision of the future. I'll start with these words from MIT economist Andrew McAfee. History teaches us that nothing changes the world like technology. For most of history, nothing much happened to the main statistics for ordinary people, how long they could expect to live, their economic contribution. And then from the middle of the 18th century, things started changing significantly. Humanity's trajectory, as measured by many metrics, started going upwards. And although at school and when we're watching Netflix, we like to look at kings and queens, empires and despots and democrats, the things that really changed people's lives have been a few practical inventions. And so here's my outrageous, oversimplified picture of all of human history, which nevertheless has some fundamental truths. It's a story of greater technology through various waves. The first industrial revolution with steam, mechanization, then trains, steamships. Historians talk about a second wave of the industrial revolution, which had electricity replacing steam, synthetic chemicals, mass production after Henry Ford. A third industrial revolution in which computers started to change how people worked, in which there were consumer electronics from 1959, the first ever silicon integrated circuit. And we are now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution with nanotech, biotech, infotech, and cognotech. And I need to frame this big picture for you. This technological change doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a respect for science and openness. These revolutions are driven by the fact that each technology started by being specific and turned into something truly general in the way that AI, nanotech, biotech, and cognotech have great general capabilities. And very importantly, what's making this go faster is positive feedback cycles. Technology is initially built by very simple tools, paper and pencil, a spade, and as technology gets better, it builds better tools, which allows us to build better technology. Computers help us to build better computers, software helps us to build better software, AI helps us to build better AI. There's another positive feedback cycle. Technology makes people more capable and smarter and allows them to build more technology. It also strengthens the ability of society to learn and collaborate. That's why there's an acceleration here, not just within each wave, but between the waves. If you look at the timing between the starts of these waves, there is an acceleration, roughly 2/3 each time. And if this pattern were to continue, in what? 35 years' time, there might be a fifth industrial revolution, which futurists have given a name to. It's the technological singularity, with general intelligence leading to superintelligence. I'm not going to talk about that today. First, I actually think if it does happen, it's likely to happen a lot sooner than 2045, but we might not get there, because although there are opportunities that I mentioned with each of these industrial revolutions, improvements to health, education, housing, goods, well-being, there are also in each case the risks of all kinds of damage. Damage to the environment, damage to social infrastructure, more types of crime, more types of war, and a breakdown of society, including what's happening more and more recently. Look at the bottom of the slide. A decline in understanding and respect for science, a decline in understanding and respect for democracy. A little bit more on what's happening with NBIC. I is not just computing, it's machine learning of big data, including the new transformers method for self-supervised learning. And nanotech is manipulating systematically, programmably matter at the atomic and molecular levels. B is reprogramming not just our biology, but also our silicon, but also our biology. And C is improving our brains. There are 4 quadrants because there are 2 dimensions in this picture. There's hardware on the top, software on the bottom, physics on the left, biology on the right, sort of. But the really important thing is that improvements in each one of the quadrants allow improvements in other quadrants. That's why there's an unprecedented acceleration happening and still to happen. For example, nanotech gives us not just computing, it gives us sensors. We can now understand, with the help of sensors, what's happening inside humans' brains without cutting their heads open whilst they are being intuitive or meditating. And when we understand what's happening in the brains, we can copy some of that back into our own AI systems, and more powerful AI systems allow us to progress with healthcare. Another example, nanotech produces all kinds of new computer chips, not just CPUs, as discussed by Moore's Law, but more recently GPUs, which have led Vídeo to be $1 trillion company, TPUs. Soon there will be quantum processing units. In each case, they allow better AI. And here's the kicker. What do you get with better AI? You get the ability to design better chips. Again, the positive feedback cycle. That's why the acceleration is set to continue. And by the way, there's so much motivation to accelerate it. Every single industry, the trading industry, the games industry, whether it's customer support, interaction design, healthcare, arts, music, science, engineering, they can all stand to be significantly improved by AI in a commercially important way. So the companies who can develop and deploy that first stand a chance of also becoming a $1 trillion company. So there is so much incentive here. And not just by the, quote, good guys, also the bad guys, the organized crime, are putting huge effort into using AI for more malware, and the military are using huge effort to put more intelligence into their weaponry, and there's an arms race there. Positive feedback cycle, more progress, and I use the word positive guardedly, because although there's more capability, it doesn't necessarily mean there's more human flourishing. Which takes me on to this next ridiculous picture of the history of mankind. Simply speaking, in the last few hundred years, we have had increasing human flourishing on most metrics, with an increasing potential for widespread damage. And if a futurist asks what's going to happen in the next 15 years, most people who don't think about it much will say, yeah, it's going to be roughly the same. Maybe it'll go a bit faster, maybe it will go a bit slower. I'm here to say none of that is likely. That's only about a 10% chance of happening. Much more likely, because the genie has been let out of the bottle with the fourth industrial revolution, is plummeting into a global collapse, an environmental catastrophe, a humanitarian disaster. If we mismanage this, I think there's at least a 30% chance we will be all losers in just 15 years' time. But if you're good at maths, you will see there's still a 60% possibility of reaching a much better future. If we manage this industrial revolution wisely, there is a sustainable superabundance for all. And it's my whole mission in life, to lower the probability of that global collapse and raise the probability of this sustainable superabundance. And to do that, it's a matter of being clearer, having a sensible, grown-up, credible discussion about how that positive interaction will happen. It's not just a well world, it's a better than well world with super longevity, super intelligence. It's a H+ or transhumanist world. We have to understand that, but we also must understand the forces leading us to the H- future. And there are 11 such forces. I'm only going to have time to talk about one. The precariat, the people who perceive they are being left behind, individuals, groups, nations. They see, and often they're right, that they are not getting what they expected as the benefits that other people in society are getting. They see a declining economic mobility, they feel a declining social validation, in the words of the Venezuelan writer Moises Naim. They're suffering from status dissonance. This leads some of them into personal despair, deaths of despair. It leads society in many places to a horrible division. Worst of all, it leads a small minority of these people to seek revenge, notoriety, or validation by taking advantage of some of these other landmines. Things like the weapons of mass destruction, or they become terrible political leaders. So we have to be aware of that, but let's clarify this positive vision. Taking advantage of NBIC, abundance of green energy, clean energy, not by today's green technology, but by other green technology enabled by nanotech and infotech. Healthy food, abundance of quality material goods and shelter, affordable health, all-round intelligence, exploration of space. All possible if we, first of all, get the advantage of new AI. But none of this can be taken for granted. We could have instead this cataclysmic disaster, which is the opposite of what I've just spelt out. Instead of an abundance of clean energy, there's a preponderance of polluting energy, malnutrition, waste and biohazard, chronic disease, unwise cleverness, soul-destroying toil, overcrowding, inequality, and tribalism. And to distinguish the two cases, we need these skills I mentioned at the beginning. Very quickly, final slide. We need to be better at learning fast. Unlearning the old skills which have done us well but now hold us back. Using cognotech to help us learn more quickly. Being agile, which means handling this big uncertainty by breaking it down into small sprints, getting relevant feedback and pivoting quickly. It means collaborating, because you can't succeed by ourselves in this. We have to pick the right partners for a while, then be ready to deselect them. We have to participate in communities, hint, London Futurist community. We have to be also political. We have to get involved in the grand political discussions about regulations, incentives, and social contract. We can't do this unless we keep a high integrity, honest communications. We can't do this unless we have a strong emotional resilience. EQ is more important than ever before. Not being afraid of failure, provided we're failing in a sensible, thoughtful way. Building on that, and then we must see the big picture. Don't be distracted by all the other kerfuffle. See that big picture, the NBIC leading to AGI, ASI, and the singularity, but also know what you don't know so you can more quickly learn. There's much more I'd like to say in various books. I hope you explore them, and I hope you are part of collaborating in reaching the sustainable superabundance as soon as possible. Thank you very much.